Hey, what's up guys, and in today's video I'm going to be going over my thoughts for YCS Lille in Peru. That's going to happen this weekend, what I think is going to do well, what I think the best decks are, the best non-engine is, basically an updated like tier list for the deck. So starting off, before you make an analysis of what decks you think are going to do well at an event, you have to first take a look at what do you think are going to be the most played decks at the event, and most played non-engine at the event. So in terms of most played decks at the event, I think the most played decks at the event are going to be Dractotail, and going to be Yummy, I think they're going to be Mitsurugi. And then alongside that, I think Lunalight as well. It's going to see a ton of play. Generally in EU compared to NA, people tend to play not play the deck that people see as like the best deck. They're trying to play the deck to counter that. Whereas in North America, a lot of people will a lot of the quote unquote known players will tend to play the most known deck. So with that in mind, and because of some other issues, which I'm going to mention in a minute, I don't think Yummy is going to see a ton of play, like pure Yummy. So like I said, players tend to play other stuff. Also, I think Yummy has not a great matchup into the pure Mitsurugi deck and also into the Dractotail deck, and even into Lunalight as well. The matchups aren't terrible because Yummy plays so much non-engine that it's like you can kind of like help that a little bit because you can just like stop your opponent. But regardless, I still think the deck is not the best pick. So personally, I would not play pure Yummy for the event. I don't think it is a great pick. I think a lot of players in Lille are not going to play it. As for Peru, it will still see a decent amount of play. It could honestly still be the most played decks in both of the events, but I don't think it will be the most played deck by like a large margin at all, especially in Lille, and I don't think Yummy is a great pick. In terms of non-engine, it's like weird. So a lot of non-engine doesn't feel that great right now. I would play like, I think Fua. Fua's really good. I would expect everyone to be main decking Fua. After that, it's kind of rough, right? You expect to run into like Ash and Perm. Bell is a card I would also expect to see a decent amount of play, so I'll keep that in mind when you're deck building. So looking at my tier list, I have the contenders I think have a good chance of winning the event. I have Dractotail, I have Lunalight, I have Yummy Mitsurugi, and then I have Mitsurugi Fiendsmith. So why is Dractotail here? I think Dractotail is super solid overall, but that can play a ton of non-engine. It's pretty durable in terms versus like interaction, like hand traps, and going second. Weakness of the deck prior like last format was the Vent Control matchup was really rough because the deck's engine doesn't set up an insane board when you go first. You kind of rely a lot on non-engine, and Vent Control, not only could they play through your board really well, your engine disruption really well, but Vent Control also had like Holy Sue, which was crazy, and you also didn't really have a lot of hand traps that could stop them super easily when they were able to play on turn 0 against you. But that's not really an issue right now. I think Dractotail's matchups against a lot of the decks are really solid. You have a solid matchup against Yummy, you have a solid matchup against Mitsurugi. They don't really have a bad matchup that's like too relevant. The worst one would probably be Lunalight, but you can play so much non-engine. I feel like that's like manageable. So I think Dractotail is a really good pick for the event, and it's honestly probably what I would end up playing. Moving on, I think we have Lunalight, and I know we have Lunalight. Lunalight is another really solid deck. Lunalight actually has solid matchups into a lot of the meta right now. Heavy Poly is a crazy card, and being able to easily summon Liger is super nice. I think Vent Control was the deck's worst matchup, so that getting hit is really good for Lunalight. I mean, Liger Dancer is just crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Also, I'll talk about the other decks first. Then we have Mitsurugi, specifically Mitsurugi Fiendsmith. So I think Mitsurugi Fiendsmith is a better pick than Mitsurugi. But no, when I say Mitsurugi Fiendsmith, I'm just talking about the one engraver in the main deck. So like it's basically almost the same as the Mitsurugi deck. But the reason I'm saying that you play the one engraver in the main deck is because I think it helps you versus some of your issues, mainly Joel, and then dealing with like some cards when you go first, like against Dractotail. And then Yummy Mitsurugi. So Yummy Mitsurugi is a deck that's been popping off recently. A lot of people are starting to talk about it. I think it's going to feel a decent amount of play in YCS Lille. And for good reason. I think it helps you with some of the issues of the deck. Especially into the mirror match, I think it's crazy. And yeah, I think Yummy Mitsurugi is really solid. Something that I forget if I mentioned, but a card that I expect to see a ton of play in the side deck, and it's probably going to be the most sided card this weekend, is Dimensional Barrier. Dimensional Barrier obviously is a trap card, turns off Synchro, XYZ, and Fusion plays. I think your deck being decent versus that card is nice. Looking at the decks I have in Contender, Dractotail It's like a mono fusion deck, but I think it's still good versus D-Barrier because you play so much non-engine. If you're able to stop your opponent, it's like fine to get hit by D-Barrier. Or if you're able to play on turn 0 with high meta, it's also fine to get hit by D-Barrier. So also another thing you have to keep in mind with D-Barrier against Dractotail is that when they go like Ketu, you have to basically D-Barrier there. And I can just go like add Lucius, put Lucius high meta, and I can play on turn 3. So I think Dractotail actually deals with D-Barrier really nicely. Moving next, we have Lunalight. I mean, I'm not gonna cap. D-Barrier divorce Lunalight. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna be real. So that would be a reason why you might be hesitant to play the deck. The Mitsurugi Fiendslip deck, D-Barrier is good against it, but I think having the Fiendslip portion and Woman Graveyard does help things a little bit. I will say that a little bit. But D-Barrier is still good, and then Yummy Mitsurugi, having D-Barrier helps because you have like double, like you can do ritual plays or you can do synchro plays. Although I will say regular Yummy isn't really the weakest to D-Barrier either, just because like the non-engine issue and being able to set up like Snatchy Plus at level 1 on the field. Another non-engine card I think we're going to see a lot of play this weekend is Joel, and here I have like a hand trap tier list for post an updated one because I've changed my opinion on some cards. But I think Joel is really solid. I think most people are going to have Joel in their deck. The only reason it's in decent situational is because it's like a side deck card. But I think a lot of people are going to have Joel in their side deck for sure. So that's something to keep in mind when you're playing a deck like Lunalight as well. Your deck's going to be a bit weaker against Joel, which is a reason why I think Mitsurugi should be playing Fiendsmith, because if Joel's going to see so much play, I think you want to have a counter to it. I think the one in Graveyard helps a lot. So you still play the extra, you still play the impulse, so I think it's chill. Joel is better against Yummy Mitsurugi than it is against Yummy. So keep in mind that Joel is obviously useless against the Dractotail deck. Other decks that I think are not going to be the best pick, but can still potentially do well. Pure Yummy. The deck's really solid. You could argue it could be up here still as well. The deck has the same like greatness as before. I think it's just a bit weak to the matchups here, just like really rough, I think, which is the reason why I don't think it's the best pick. Everyone has their eye out for the deck too, although it doesn't really matter too much in terms of like non-engine wise, because you can't really hard prep for Yummy non-engine in the main deck because then you like lose to like the other decks. But matchup wise, it does matter. Pure Mitsurugi, I think, is just weaker than Fiendsmith. And then Malice, I think Malice is a pretty solid deck overall. I've been looking into it the past couple days. My only issues with Malice is just really like the consistency is a bit rough. I think Allure is probably the best consistency option. I would like Millennium if it didn't lock you out of Impulse, because like it's Earth, so like if you Impulse you can't use like Caveman or whatever. But if it wasn't for that, I would like Millennium in the deck. But I think Allure is the best, but even Allure feels like it has some issues. But I think Malice is still really solid overall. The deck can still play a ton of non-engine. The engine is still solid when you go first, when you can play like, and people not playing land tip means you can blow through a lot of like decks super easily, especially if you play against like Yummy Mitsurugi, for example. Well, this deck is playing like 15 non-engine, like they're not actually playing a ton of non-engine, you know, so I think it helps in that scenario. Raza Mitsurugi's deck I think is actually really playable, to be honest. Even though you can't really bridge from Raza to Mitsurugi as easily anymore, I think it's still chill. So you have two approaches you can do. You can either go, when you have Raza, you can either go into like the Mathematic Ring 4 to search. I don't think that's really that great. You use too many resources. Or you can just play it like a normal Raza deck, and then when you just go do Garth and cross draw. So you draw 3 cards basically. So like, and when you play like pre-prep, your pre-prep Habakiri Prayer is the chance of drawing like a Mitsu starter is really nice. And if you like node before you like normal summon, like let's say you go like X Sword Ice, you can like end up like using like Aramasa's out of bad draw as well. So I think that the Raza Mitsurugi deck is still really strong. The Raza card is still really good going second. Well, X Raza is. At least it is at 1. You do with a bonfire. I think maybe you play 7th Tachyon, but that is an issue of the deck, is that Joel is a card now again more than ever, and Joel kind of cooks you a little bit. So that's one reason why I like the pure deck a little bit more, just because I don't think Detonator is the best card like contingency plan under Joel, just because like some of the decks can deal with it super easily. Like for example, Dractotail can deal with it super easily. Then any spell is just like beauty Detonator, so yeah, unfortunate. Memento, the deck that I think is really solid that I've also been looking into the past couple days. Memento being I mean, it's just that kind of deck, right? It's just like one past like year or whatever. It's been like one of the best going first decks. An issue with Memento is Retaliating Sea. Retaliating Sea is going to be seeing a lot of play this format, a lot of play these events, and that is the best hand trap against Memento, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. So you really need to be worried about Retaliating Sea, and dealing with Retaliating Sea by itself can be fine, but Retaliating Sea +1 can be an issue. And when you're playing these decks like Dractotail, like post side, not Dractotail, but like other decks like post side, they're gonna have Retaliating Sea +1. So it's gonna be rough. And I mentioned Dractotail because I got my thoughts mixed up because like Retaliating Sea, the main reason to play it is for Dractotail. You wouldn't see it played in Dractotail though. Which that is one of the benefits, one of the saving graces, is that not every deck will play Retaliating Sea. But enough will that I think the card, it's like a real threat. And the K9 Crystron deck is solid, I think, with Noroi. The decks that the best going second, this engine isn't as strong compared to other decks, so that's why I think the deck is a bit lacking and why I have it at tier 2. And I'll talk about some of these other decks real quick. Ritual Beast actually has a really good Yummy matchup. I think, but the issue is because like you can play through the engine destruction super easily. You don't care about Book of Moon. You can fuse with your face downs, yada yada yada. A lot of reasons I'm not really going to get into right now. But like I said, I don't think a lot of people actually end up playing Yummy, at least for Lille. So I don't think Ritual Beast would be the best pick. And then like all these decks are kind of whatever. So I'm not going to talk about them too much. All I will say is I got baited into playing Rise of Onomot. Bro, their Onomot cards are so bad going second. Oh my god, you don't even know. And moving on to like the non-engine, I think it would be the best that you should probably be playing. So Fool, I think is really good. Shifter, I think is crazy. However, I would not main deck Shifter. I would side deck the Shifter. The reason that I would side deck the Shifter, not main deck it, is because it's not good against any Mitsurugi deck, and it's not good against Mitsurugi also. It's good against Dractotail, it's good against Yummy, but I think a lot of people are not going to end up playing Yummy. They're going to play other decks. So I think you're going to wish you had a different card. So save the Shifter for the side deck. If it was for Lille, I wouldn't main Shifter. For Peru, I think I might main Shifter. So that's like might be the difference there, but I'm not familiar with the exact metagame in Peru, so someone else who like actually lives in the region could like maybe tell you like a more a more detailed, like have a better answer to that. The Dominus cards are really crazy. Impulse being really good against the Mitsurugi deck and the deck, the Mitsurugi and Dractotail, really good against those decks. I would play Impulse in any decks I can play it, except for Lunalight. I don't think it's that great. Lunalight does not play that much non-engine. I would main one in Lunalight though, because I think you want it as a thrust target, because you don't setting Black Goat when you go first against Dractotail, when you go first against Mitsurugi is pretty lackluster. Impulse is much better. That's mainly relevant though for when you know you're gonna play against the deck, like in a game 1 scenario. So like when you're at the higher rounds of Swift or you're in top cut. So just keep that in mind. And like Purge is crazy for sure. Ash, I'm not gonna talk too much about these hand traps. Like these are obviously insane. Joel, I think Joel should be in your side deck for Mitsurugi if you're playing a deck that's playing like 20 hand traps. But I think the Joel loses value because like the Joel kind of like if your Joel ends up making some hand traps bad, but also depends on what hand traps you play. It can be fine. Like Joel paired with some hand traps is like chill against like Mitsurugi or whatever. Like Joel paired against like Lunalight. Joel with like Delta against Lunalight or Mitsurugi is actually pretty good. So it just depends on your non-engine you're playing. Imperm I think is cool. The issue with Imperm, so Imperm is like an arc light out and also useful against Dractotail. It's just not really good against Mitsurugi. Not every deck can play it though. Like for example, like you're gonna see it played in Yummy, and I think you might see it play in Mitsurugi, but you're not gonna see it played in Dractotail for obvious reasons. It's a trap card. Bell is really good. It's a solid overall. I think it's a bit overrated against Mitsurugi though. Just because like you can't even save it for your turn. Cause like if you go Prayer Tribute Mirakumo and you try to Bell, the Bell doesn't really do that much. So it was like, but I digress. Bestials with Mitsurugi seeing play. Bestials are cool. Also the Rogue deck of Lunalight, Bestials hit that. Retaliating Sea against Dractotail. Also Retaliating Sea is really good against. Oops, did I show? Oops, whatever. Retaliating Sea is really good against Lunalight too. And Memento, but I mean it's really just for the Lunalight Dractotail deck. So I think Retaliating Sea is a real card to consider. The only issue is that most decks can't play it. Azuna's cool. It's a bit better than when I had it rated as before, because you can go like something that's hard for some decks out is you can go make the Typhon. you can make Typhon with Lupus under it, and some decks have a really hard time outing it. And that's especially good against the Mitsurugi decks, because when people are splashing Mitsurugi, you can also do that with Hound as well. Technically, the Typhon's harder out. So before I had Hound as in my self-core deck profile with the Zuna, but I think Typhon is probably just better. And you can just summon Typhon, they go into like a Zeus after you attack, and if they don't have like an Imperm, you can just like clear the whole board. So I think Zuna's like not unironically not bad, because like less pure Yummy, more like Yummy Mitsu. Delta, I think Delta's solid because of Mitsurugi. And then Phantasme. Phantasme is just another card for Yummy. That's really solid. The only thing is against Mitsu Yummy, it's not amazing. And then as for the lackluster hand traps, these hand traps I think could still be playable depending on like your deck, but probably going to be the weaker ones. DB Crow, Nibiru, I think you're playing Dractotail, you play Nibiru for sure. I think it's a crazy card in that deck, because the Dractotail deck wants the best cards going first. Perulia, I wouldn't play this card, bro. I'm not gonna cap. Lancelot, you could play it for like could play it for what's the name of the deck? Lunalight, but I would just play other cards. Ogre is technically playable against Lunalight too. Meowth, this card's trash, don't play it. Songs, it's like whatever, and then be unplayable hand traps. So yeah, that's mainly it for like what I think is going to be deck wise and non-engine wise for this format, or this weekend anyway. I think these are the best picks. I would probably play one of these decks. I would lean towards not playing Lunalight, just because I think, like I said, I think D-Bear is going to run rampant. I'm not going to lie. D-Bear is going to run rampant. So I think that like a bunch of people are going to be playing 3 D-Bear, and not like one for thrust. They're going to be playing 3 D-Bears. So I would be afraid to play this deck. I would be more inclined to play one of these 3 decks. But yeah. Anywho, I hope you did enjoy the video, and did make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you're going to Lille or Peru this weekend, good luck. Hope you do very well. Have a wonderful day. Peace.